Before we begin the video, I'm going to start off by saying to those who are already subscribed, thank you for the support, and to those who are new to the channel, welcome. I hope you enjoy this new series. Secondly, I have a gaming channel on Twitch where I play retro games and newer titles, link in the description. Lastly, this video is long due to the amount of research, scripting, and editing, so a like would be deeply appreciated. Now, let's jump right into the video. The Legend of Zelda series is a staple of gaming history, going from amazing 8-bit graphics to outstanding 2D design, and now breathtaking 3D gameplay, from different consoles to unique and fun handhelds. In every single game in the main series, there are a few consistencies that each Link shares. Those being, every Link is always asleep at the very start of each game. Link is the hero. There's an evil that Link faces. Link ends up fighting minions, grunts, mini-bosses, big bosses, and final bosses. And lastly, the one that we are going to be going over in this video, the items Link has at his disposal. Link's item inventory, i.e. that absolute freakishly large, enormous item arsenal he has in his pockets. Due to Link's armory-sized arsenal, he has been able to pull off some amazing feats. Link is the hero of Hyrule after all, who fights back evil in its many forms, from Vati the Wind Mage, Malladus, Girahim, Aghanim, Zant, Demise, Ganondorf, and Ganon, Demise's eternal reincarnated plague on Hyrule, all due to this collection of weapons, items, tools, armor, abilities, and equipment. Now, ever since I was a child, I've loved the Legend of Zelda series, and I enjoyed Dungeons and Dragons growing up as well. So I had a thought, what if I made a Link character in D&D and make a video out of it? But people have already done that. Great. So what if I compared Link's item inventory to D&D items? And the hell began. Hello everyone and welcome to the first episode of LOZ D&D. In this video, I will be going over the reincarnated spirit of the hero, Link, or in this case, the hero of Hyrule, and his item inventory, and compare them to D&D items. All of this will be based off of my opinions, my thoughts, especially after all the amount of research I've done. So if you have different thoughts, please share it in the comments section. I'd really like to see what you guys think could have been a better D&D item. Now, where to start? Well, this was a literal toss-up on which link I was going to start off with in regards to chronological order. Either starting with the release date of the very first game in the series, the original 1986 Legend of Zelda, aka the Hero of Hyrule, or go timeline-wise starting at the very beginning of said timeline with Skyward Sword's Link, the Hero of the Skies. I did flip a coin, it landed on heads, so we're gonna go with the gaming chronological release order, starting with the Hero of Hyrule from the original 1986 Legend of Zelda. So, here we go. Quick backstory. The Hero of Hyrule. Man, this Link is one heck of a kid. Long story short, Link saves Impa from a small group of Ganon's minions single-handedly, and afterward, with the plead of Impa, he went on an adventure to save Hyrule and rescue Princess Zelda. Plain and simple backstory. Now, on Link's adventure, he obtains items in various ways, ranging from finding, collecting, or buying his items. He gets his items from either monsters he defeats in the overworld or dungeons, the people of Hyrule who hide in caves that talk to him, or in caverns explored that are a secret to everyone. Let's start off this list with the very first item that he surprisingly has at all times in every single game and iteration: his pocket. Wait, what? I know, right? Yes, Link always has deep pockets containing an army's worth of ammunition. Thanks to Zeltic, who explained in one of his videos how Link's inventory system could in fact be magical, which explains how he's able to carry so much. Without this ability, he would probably have to carry it himself or place him on pack animals like many of the NPCs do in Breath of the Wild. So, what D&D item is equal to Link's Mary Poppin' magical pockets? That would be the Bag of Holding. This item has different levels, which depending on what carrying capacity ranges from level 1 to level 4. And of course, the higher the level, the more it costs. The carrying capacity, the amount of space, the weight of the bag itself, but Link can easily carry it with no problem whatsoever. But when it comes to the price, I very much doubt he could afford it with his limitation on his money bag. Maybe to keep him from being greedy. Here's a list of the bag of holding types we have. There's type 1 through 4. Type 1, the weight of the bag itself is 15 pounds. The carrying capacity is 250 pounds. The amount of space is 30 cubic feet. The price of the bag is 2,500 gold pieces. Type 2, the weight of the bag itself is 25 pounds. The carrying capacity is 500 pounds. The amount of space, 70 cubic feet. And the price of it, 5,000 gold pieces. Type 3, the weight of the bag itself, 35 pounds. The carrying capacity, 1,000 pounds. The amount of space, 150 cubic feet. And the price, 7,400 gold pieces. And lastly, type 4, the weight of the bag itself, 60 pounds. The carry capacity, 1,500 pounds. Amount of space, 250 cubic feet. And finally, the price, 10,000 gold pieces. Now that we've talked about Link's pocket, let's talk about what item he keeps in there. And let's start off with our very first item that he surprisingly has at the beginning of this game, the shield. Specifically, the small shield. Link has it literally at the very start of the game, thankfully, as many enemies do some heavy damage, so it helps stop projectiles from enemies. So, what's the equivalent to this small shield? A regular shield. A shield in D&D adds +2 to your AC. Its weight is 6 pounds and it costs 10 gold pieces when you go to any armory. And it is usually either made from wood or from metal. Now, although you have this small shield at the very beginning, later on you actually can get a better shield. The next shield that is acquired is a lot more useful and helpful, that being the magical shield. It can be found in different shops that are located in caves all over Hyrule. The magical shield is just like the small shield in that it can protect Link from projectiles, but it can deflect spells, which is very helpful. Now, the shield that is best equated to this defense is the Spell Guard shield. For those of you who think defense is the best offense, this is that shield, but it will cost you 50,000 gold pieces to be exact. So it's not cheap whatsoever. However, to prove how helpful and how good this shield is, it gives you advantage on saving throws against spells, disadvantage of spell attacks made against you, and of course gives you +2 to your AC. Now, let's move on to the very first item that you actually obtain at the very start of the game. Link's sword, or wooden sword, which, fun fact, originally started out with Link, but the creator, Shigeru Miyamoto, decided to have it removed to give players a reason to actually explore. It can be located in a cavern literally a few feet on the same screen you start out on in the game. A quick note, when you get the sword, if you have full hearts, you can shoot sword beams, which can do damage from a distance, but once Link takes damage, the ability is gone until he heals to full health. So, what sword matches this unique weapon? The wooden sword. It isn't that sharp and will wear and tear when you roll a d20 and roll anything below a 5. The cost to get one of these weapons is 1 silver piece. It weighs 3 pounds and its damage output is 1d4 slashing damage or 1d6 because it's versatile. Now, onto the next sword Link finds. The white sword. It can be found in a cave above the waterfall, however you need 5 hearts to actually obtain it. The white sword deals 2 times more damage than the wooden sword, and it too can shoot sword beams as well as long as you have full health. Unfortunately, I did have a difficult time figuring out what sword represented it. And sadly, the only thing I could come up with after so much time researching was the short sword. The short sword costs 10 gold pieces, weighs 2 pounds, and does 1d6 slashing damage. It's a +2 more than the wooden sword, but that's the closest that made sense. Moving on to the last and most powerful sword in the game, the magical sword. Not as powerful as the master sword, but a good sword nonetheless. It can be found at the graveyard, but surprisingly, you need 12 hearts to obtain it, which is 1 heart less when you're getting the master sword in Breath of the Wild, which is a neat comparison. And just like the other 2 weapons, it too can shoot sword beams as well when at full health. So when thinking of a D&D sword that could equal to this powerful weapon, I sadly could only think of the longsword. I know, very lackluster. It's the best that made sense, but anyway. The cost of the longsword is 15 gold pieces, and it does 1d8 slashing damage. Due to it being a versatile weapon, it can do 1d8 as well. Okay, so for those of you who have been paying attention, you may be wondering, is there a comparison for the sword beam ability? After hours and days, I found the ability that works just like the sword beam. That being the power beam. It's a cantrip with a range of 60 feet and hits 1d8. At level 5, you can add spellcasting modifier. And at levels 11 and 17, you can add an extra 1d8 force damage. Now, let's talk about two items on this list that function very similarly as to make this easier. I would mention both together. These two are the blue ring and red ring. Link can buy the blue ring in any shop that are hidden in caves. The blue ring costs 250 rupees and has the ability to cut damage Link takes by half, while the red ring does the same as the blue ring, but instead of half, it only takes 25% damage, and it can be found in the 9th dungeon, which is literally the last place where you can fight Ganon. So what can be equal to these two items? There is only one ring to rule them all, one ring to find them, one ring to bring them all. The Ring of Protection. It adds +1 to AC and saving throws and costs 500 gold pieces. In homebrew games, you can increase it and add +2 through +4, but of course the price does add up. Going back to weapons, let's talk about Link's next weapon in his armory, the boomerang. It is a famous weapon that some or most Links get in his inventory, and in this case, it can be found in the first dungeon after defeating a group of gorillas. The boomerang has some neat abilities like stunning big enemies or killing smaller enemies. It can reach and retrieve items that are quite a distance, and it is strong enough to trigger switches from a distance as well. So, what boomerang stands with this normal version? The normal boomerang. It costs 5 gold pieces, weighs about 1 pound, and has the range of 30 to 120 feet, and does 1d4 bludgeoning damage, and only returns to the sender on a missed hit. Now, as cool as the normal boomerang is, the slightly better magical boomerang does a bit more. Only slightly better by being just a bit faster and able to reach further places, and with that being all its function, it's just a normal boomerang. This item can be obtained in the 3rd dungeon after defeating 3 blue gorillas. Okay, so with the magical boomerang being good, what can it be equal to? The boomerang of retrieval. Based on what I could find, it costs, weighs, and does the same damage that a regular boomerang does. However, it does return even on a successful hit. It also does 1d4 bludgeoning damage and 1 extra damage of force, and if it hits an object that weighs less than 1 pound, it will carry it back to the sender. Now, here we go with an item that has an explosive personality like Andy from Red vs. Blue, the bomb. It can be bought for 20 rupees in stores located in caves like many other items. Or it can be picked up when you kill an enemy in the overworld. The bomb can be used for more strategic planning. In the game, it can be used to open caves or kill enemies. That being said, the bomb in D&D can work in similar ways, but costs 150 gold pieces, and surprisingly weighs 1 pound. It can be thrown up to 60 feet with a radius blast of 5 feet, dealing 3d6 fire damage on a failed saving throw, or nothing if you pass the DC 12 saving throw. So close. Magic is a fickle beast, and many of the characters in the Legend of Zelda series have it in spades. The next couple of magic items that we're going to be going over have magic fused in them. For example, the magical rod, which can be found in the 6th dungeon and when used can shoot energy projectiles. But when you obtain the Book of Magic, the rod can shoot fireballs like some of the enemies can, but a neat detail is that even if your magic runs out, you can still deal damage to the enemy by swinging and hitting them. Unfortunately, when looking up the rod, the only thing I can simply come up with was the weapon the fire rod. Even though it already shoots fire without the aid of the book, it's still close enough. The fire rod costs 10 gold, which is surprisingly quite inexpensive, and deals 1d4 bludgeoning damage when you swing it. But when you actually use its power, you can deal 1d6 fire damage with a range of up to 60 feet. Now that's hot. As cool as that weapon is, in order to use the fire spell on the Rod of Magic, you need the Book of Magic. That said, you can find it in the 8th dungeon, and it already upgrades the magical rod to shoot fire instead of energy. Sadly, the only thing I could find was the spell book. That was the only magic book that could be possibly used to cast spells of any kind, from fire, lightning, energy, and so on. It will cost you 50 gold pieces and only records the spells, so it would be up to the player to know the spell and perform it, not the book itself. And people say reading is fun. Not in this case. Moving on to the blue candle and red candle. These two candles basically do the exact same thing with some slight differences. The blue candle lets Link burn objects to reveal passages, but can only be used one time per screen and needs to leave the area in order to use it again. It can do some damage to the enemies, but also Link as well. It can be bought in shops for 60 rupees. On the other hand, the red candle can be found in the 7th dungeon and does slightly more than the blue candle. Like burning more, does not need the player to leave the room or the screen to use it again, and can be used multiple times. It's basically an upgrade. Now, when comparing it, I could only find a normal candle which costs 1 copper piece. It weighs half a pound and lights 10 feet around for the blue candle. The red candle comparison, sadly I could only find the Candle of the Deep. Once you light it, it has the ability to not be extinguished even underwater. This candle costs 2 gold pieces, which is very surprising for a unique ability to stay lit even underwater. Time for our next item, the clock. It's a unique item that has the ability to stop time indefinitely on enemies, leaving them frozen and vulnerable to attack until Link decides to leave the screen. This item can only be attained as a drop item by fallen enemies. I did have a hard time finding an item similar to this, but I did find one, the Hand Clock of Time. This neat and very expensive item, totaling over 50,000 gold pieces, and you needing to have a 13 or higher intelligence to attune to it. The clock has abilities used for attack, especially one called Time Freeze, which can cast the spell Time Stop along with different abilities, but we're going to be focusing just on this one. To activate the Time Freeze ability, you need to use 9 charges. The clock has 15 charges, and to regain lost charges, you need to roll a 3d4 plus 2 per day at dawn. Now, let's talk about power. The Power Glove. I mean the Power Bracelet. The Power Bracelet allows the wearer to gain immense strength in order to remove obstacles or lift heavy objects to gain passage through places. The bracelets are found under an armor statue located on the Midwest area of Death Mountain's base. So what incredible feat of strength of armware can this item match with? That would be the Bracelets of Incredible Strength. These bracelets increase the wearer's strength to 21 and lets the wearer perform the ability to throw weapons with range as if they were projectile weapons. This item costs a total of 18,000 gold pieces and weigh a whopping 2 pounds? How handy. Legolas Greenleaf, Robin Hood, Katniss Everdeen, Green Arrow, and Hawkeye. What do all these characters have in common? They are all archers. The bow is a very unique weapon that Link uses to shoot regular arrows or silver arrows that damage enemies from a distance. Link can get this weapon in the very first dungeon, and it is needed to defeat Goma. I think I hit the bullseye with this comparison. The short bow. It was only reasonable that the short bow made sense. The short bow costs 25 gold pieces, weighs 2 pounds, the range is 80 to 320 feet, and it does 1d6 piercing damage. Of course, that's with the arrows. Arrows are the ammo of the bow and can be bought in stores. They can damage enemies from a distance fired by the bow. Now in D&D, arrows weigh 1 pound, cost you 1 gold piece per round, and is 1d6 piercing damage. Now, the only weapon that can kill Ganon in this game is the silver arrows. They are found in the 9th dungeon, which is the last dungeon in the game where you fight Ganon. The silver arrows do double damage to normal arrows against other enemies. It was quite difficult to determine if silver arrows in D&D books or websites were similar, but yeah, they were. So the silver arrows are quite expensive, being 100 gold pieces and 5 silver pieces, to which I'm guessing are used to coat it. The damage is +1 to 1d6 piercing damage. Now, music is a staple in the Zelda series. And to start the line of musical instruments throughout the series, the recorder. I'm sure we all know what this is, that damn flute-like instrument that every elementary school kid had. But I'm sure all of us would have thought it would be way better if ours could do the same thing Link's recorder could do. That would be the ability to warp from one dungeon to another dungeon. Or in this case, beat Dig Dogger. The recorder is found in the 5th dungeon. So I had a really difficult time trying to find an instrument resembling it. I racked my brain trying to find it with its abilities until I just realized it's a flute. It just gives you access to the abilities, so the flute is a 1 pound instrument that can be made out of metal or wood that costs 2 gold pieces, and in either homebrew, settings, or character abilities can give you access to the abilities in Zelda 1. Now, I'd say ahoy mateys, but the raft isn't exactly a pirate ship. Just a couple of wooden poles or beams strapped together to make a floating boat. It can be found in the 3rd dungeon, and it helps you cross bodies of water. So it's basically a portable bridge, but let's see what the D&D raft is like. Boy, this sucker costs 100 gold pieces, so it's definitely a mini boat at that price. It has an AC of 9 with 30 health points and has a ramming speed of 1d6/8. Full speed ahead indeed. So when I was a kid, my stepladder was always there helping me get to new heights and take me places I just simply couldn't reach. Sometimes I did wish I had a real ladder. But like Link, it was good enough to have, especially when he gets new items. Definitely when places are impossible to reach without it. The stepladder can be located in the 4th dungeon. I have no idea how tall that ladder is, but that stepladder, if you can even call it that, it's basically a ladder and costs 1 silver piece. I'd say easy storage, but I have no clue if it's foldable or if it is 10 feet long. These next couple of items can be found all over dungeons and are usually found in chests in other games. Let's talk about the item, the key. The key is bought in different stores and can be located in dungeons in order to open dungeon doors. Now, when it comes to the dungeons, I'm sure Ganon either bought the locks and keys, and in some cases the people of Hyrule snuck into them and grabbed the keys. Who's to say? Anyway, Now in D&D, the lock and key are a combination set. They are both sold together. They are £1 and cost 10 gold pieces, so I'd say that's a really good deal. So I'm sure people know that most janitors have a master key that gives them access to all doors in a building. Well, that's what the magical key basically is. It lets you open every single door in the dungeon without it being expended, and it can be located in the 8th dungeon. Now, looking for a D&D item equivalent to this magical key, what I found was the skeleton key. Just like the magical key, the skeleton key can allow you to open any and all doors without any checks. It costs 2,000 gold pieces and weighs half a pound. Now, if you were to ask any Zelda fan about this particular item, some may say this item is useless, some may say it's helpful. I am in between, but I usually end up needing its help. The compass. It is a staple in the Legend of Zelda universe, as you always find it in every single dungeon alongside another item. The compass indicates the location of all 8 Triforce shards in each of the rooms in all 8 of the dungeons. But in the 9th dungeon, it locates the room where Princess Zelda herself is being held. Now that is useful, but the compass in D&D doesn't have that function. But it can point north, south, east, and west. It weighs £1/4 pound, and it costs 100 gold pieces, and it gives you advantage on wisdom survival checks. Although I'm pretty sure we would all want Captain Jack Sparrow's compass. These next 2 items are kind of similar, as they do require paper. The first one is the map. The maps used in Zelda 1 are used for directions and the layout of the overworld or dungeons you explore. You automatically get the overworld map, but the dungeon map are located in the dungeons themselves. Now, the second item is the letter. The letter in this game is an item used to get another item. It's almost like a trading sequence. You get the letter from an old man in the northeast cavern of Hyrule, and you give it to an old woman who sells you a blue or red water of life. So what do these items have in common? Well, they are both made of paper. Now, in D&D, paper is made from a standard cloth fiber, and it costs you 5 gold pieces. What a deal. Sorry, that's my stomach. I might be hungry. Well, on that note, let's talk about food. The next item is used to lure enemies to make it easier for you to attack them, but it does only really have one real use. That being to feed the gorilla in the 7th dungeon that it blocks, which is the only way to get into the next room that it blocks. Once you feed it, it will disappear, but you can buy more from the shops for 100 rupees or 60 if you have the blue ring that was sold in the same shop. The food only appears one time for about 10 seconds before it disappears, and then you can use it again, but not with the gorilla, as you need to buy it again. In D&D, it was tough to think of, and I could only find rations. Rations, especially meat, would cost 3 silver, so if you're a hunter or ranger, just kill an animal and skin it. That was the closest thing I could find. Imagine, if you will, you are battling an enemy. You are hit several times to the point that you hear that infernal sound of low hearts. What do? Well, if I had a fairy, I'd usually just let it kill me so I can get full health. But that's if I let the enemy beat me and let the fairy heal me automatically. The fairy can heal Link to full health, but it can be bottled in other games. But in order to get one though, you need to kill an enemy and have it drop one if you're lucky. Now, when thinking about a D&D equivalent, the best thing I can find was an NPC fairy with the ability to heal. It would have to be very powerful, as it would need the ability to cast the resurrection spell, as it does bring you back from the dead. You all know that. Damn those Deku scrubs. Speaking of healing, let's talk about the potions. There are two types of potions in this game, but they basically function the same. The blue life potion can heal all of Link's hearts and can be bought in shops for 40 rupees, or in caves where you can either choose between a potion or a heart container. That being said, the second potion, or the red water life, functions the very same way, it's just a backup. To get the second potion, you need to find the letter from the old man and deliver it to the old woman. And you'll be able to buy it from the shop for 68 rupees. So with so much healing properties, what is the best comparison? Potion of healings. There are other higher potions, but it all depends on the character's hit points. A potion of healing does take one action and heals 1d4 plus 2. It weighs about half a pound and it costs 60 gold. Quite expensive, so leave it for emergencies, just like your paycheck. Backup bottles are always needed, even though you technically only get 2. But in later games in the series, they are a rarity and are quite limited. And the amount you get is 4 throughout the whole game, despite the fact that the Gerudo Desert has nothing but sand. But that's neither here nor there. You get the potions in caves, but sadly you can't actually keep the empty bottles. So what does the D&D handbook have to say about the bottles? Well, they are basically empty jars made of glass. It weighs 2 pounds, costs 2 gold pieces, and holds a pint and a half of liquid. Oh, finally a heart. Sorry about that. When you get hit, you lose a heart piece. So you look for hearts to heal you. The Queen of Heart would have such fun with this. Hearts heal you up 1 full heart piece, and are found all over the overworld as well as dungeon when you slay an enemy and they drop it. Well, when it came to the D&D healing item, there was only one that I can find that represented more of the heart container than the actual heart, which was the Amulet of Regeneration. This cool amulet can heal you 2d6 as a bonus action. It has 5 charges and you can regain 1d4 charge daily at dawn. In order to attune to it, you must spend time thinking of your loved ones. But boy, is that expensive. However, well worth it and costs 5,000 gold pieces. The amulet can heal a creature within 5 feet you touch, which does consume a charge. It's a good insurance, Link. Look into it, my dude. We all hate that sound when you lose hearts. Now, picture you entering a dungeon. Dark, cold. You're traveling, discovering, and exploring. In the castle-like structure, after some time, finding treasures, items, and weapons. There it is before you, the main dungeon door. And afterwards, the main boss. You prepare yourself. The fight begins. You analyze the situation and get ready to attack. Beginning to look, beginning to learn the monster's weakness, and beginning to exploit it. And after some time, you did it. You managed to beat the boss of that dungeon. And that is where you find it. A heart container. Proof of your victory and proof of your defeat of your enemy. Heart containers not only heal Link, but increase his life force by 1, allowing him to take more hits. Heart containers are located in shops as options between that or a potion. And in dungeons, when you slay a dungeon boss. So what can that proof of victory over your enemy possibly be compared to? That would be the Amulet of Health. This D&D item allows the wearer to increase their constitution to 19. So that is extremely helpful, especially if your D&D character has low constitution to begin with. But this item is a bit pricey, costing you a total of 5,000 gold pieces. But let's be honest, nothing can contain your heart of love. Alright, bad pun out of the way. Moving on! Oh no, I lost my wallet. I'm sure we've all had that happen to us. Well, lucky for Link, he doesn't have that problem. But what is his problem is not having enough room for more. I've already made the joke of him not being greedy, so let's move on. The wallet is what Link uses to carry his rupees. However, it does have a limit to how much he can carry. In this game, that would be 255 rupees in total. He always has a wallet on him, but in every other game, it can actually be upgraded later on in his adventure. Hey, found my wallet. Well, with some deep pockets to fit all his rupees in, what kind of pouch is equal to this? That would be the coin purse of holding. This small bag is like the cousin of the bag of holding. It has two different designs. The standard leather, which is a pouch that weighs half a pound, costs 100 gold, and holds up to 10 pounds worth of coin. While the second design is a chain leather that weighs 1 pound, costs 115 gold, and also holds up 10 pounds worth of coins. Speaking of money, Link, despite not having an actual job, somehow manages to always have money, even when he doesn't have any at all. All he has to do is smash pots, cut grass, kill some enemies, but in this case, in this game, killing enemies will result in either blue or yellow rupees. Rupees are the currency in the Zelda universe, ranging in different colors, indicating their worth in the game. The blue rupees are worth 1, and the yellow rupees are worth 5. Now, when finding currency in D&D, it was difficult to determine if it would be the gold until I found gemstones. It was reasonable to think that the gemstones could be the currency, as you can buy and sell them for platinum, gold, electrum, silver, and copper. So let's not get into net worth, material value, and all that other stuff. Matt Pat over at Game Theory already made a video about the rupees, link in the description. Let's move on. Here we are, the last item in the game. The very thing that almost every Ganon appears in, trying so hard to get his hands on to solidify his rule over Hyrule and the world. The Triforce. This sacred artifact was created by the 3 golden goddesses to bring the people of Hyrule joy, peace, love, and happiness. But as we all know, absolute power corrupts absolute. In this game, we are told Ganon rules over Hyrule with the Triforce of Power that he stole, and so, to protect the Triforce of Wisdom, Princess Zelda had it shattered into 8 shards and hid the pieces into 8 dungeons all over Hyrule. The Triforce of Wisdom in itself is very powerful and gives its wielder unparalleled wisdom and insight as well as unique abilities. In this case, however, we are just collecting them. Not much in further explanation, especially since each of the shards are again located in 8 dungeons after defeating the boss. When looking for an artifact for this item, I dove real hard, thought outside the box, and researched heavily for what divine, sacred, or powerful artifact I could compare the Triforce to. And it was basically impossible finding anything that equals this very powerful MacGuffin. Fortunately for me, someone decided to make the Triforce itself into an actual D&D item. Link to where I found it in the description, and thankfully it was decently and honestly probably as accurate as it can actually be to the Triforce in ability, power, and description. Well, that's it. Every weapon, armor, item, tool, ability, and equipment from the very first game in the Legend of Zelda series that I can compare to D&D items from what I could find, think of, and research. This list was a lot longer than I expected, and so was the video, but I did enjoy making it, and I am planning on making a part 2 for Adventure of Link, aka the Hero of Hyrule, which in fact is the same Link but older. I would also like to make my version of a D&D Link character for each game in this series, so if we can get a good number of subscribers, I'll get right into it as soon as possible. That being said, please leave a like if you enjoyed the video, hit the subscribe button to support any future videos, and share this video with your friends, family, and like-minded people. And leave a comment below if you have any thoughts or opinions of what I got right or wrong, and maybe different items that would have been better choices. Thank you once again for the support. Thank you for watching. Stay frosty, everyone, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye.